Hello and welcome to the second video in this mini-series where you see my process behind the recent 31 meter long drawing that I made for Imager and Tapas.io. Chances are you've probably seen some of my content on other websites, so if you're here because of that, thank you and welcome. When I first posted this project, I never thought that it would have the traction that it actually ended up getting, and it's my most successful post to date, so it's really great to see you. In this video, you'll be seeing me doing some details for the outline that I drew in the previous video. I don't always do things in this order, but since the drawing was made with no underlying sketch, I couldn't really do every little detail straight away. If you haven't seen the last video, I recommend going back and watching that before this one. That's the part where I draw a lot of the bigger lines of the whole and focus on putting in a lot of little Easter eggs and things for people to find when they scroll through the project. So what you're seeing here is me just really filling in the rest of the outline, all the minor surfaces that makes a drawing seem more three-dimensional. It's most of all a bunch of small rocks and lines indicating dirt or bedrock as you get further down. So on the last video I was asked to talk a bit about my idea process behind this kind of a drawing. And well, the concept idea was one I had because I wanted to play with the format that you have to work with when making something for the internet and that people will be enjoying on their phone. This drawing was made specifically to be posted on Imgur, so I knew exactly what the format were and what people are used to, which is a lot of down-scrolling. You'll also see me utilizing this format in some, if not all, of my episodes of my comic Hues of Solitude, which are also made to be posted in a web format. I thought about what kinds of concepts might fit a long downwards format really well, and a deep hole was what sprung to mind for me. With this idea I could make the drawing as long as I wanted to, and because we're down underground, all sorts of things might be buried down there, so it's excellent for fun details for the viewer to find. Coming up with these specific details is another beast entirely. When I have to come up with a lot of little ideas like this to fit in with a concept and a theme, I brainstorm a lot. I write down everything I can think of off the top of my head, and then I look around on the internet for more inspiration. At the beginning of the whole, I just implemented ideas willy-nilly as I thought of them, but in the end I had made a long list with all my ideas and implemented them as I went deeper down. I tried to tie everything together with all these little mushrooms at the sides of the hole, and of course the muted colors, as you'll see in the next and last video. Really, this project was very freeing for me. I haven't really just turned off my brain and let my hand do the work with the line art like this in a while, so a lot of the idea process really wasn't planned or forced, it just kinda happened as I went along. I actually used to sell these drawings a few years back that was really more just doodles for me, where I would fill out an entire A4 paper with all the random items I could think of in a very pattern-like fashion. I would make all the items about the same size with the same distance between them and only do the outline with no color or shadow, so the final piece would be very monotone and you could just look at it for a long time, continually finding new little things to look at. And I would usually pick one item to fill out all the little gaps that I would end up having, like bubbles or stars, to tie the whole thing together. And it's kind of like the mushrooms that I made for this drawing. So it's sort of like the same principle where I just really turn my brain off and draw a lot for a long time with a lot of intricate details. I've actually been thinking about if I should make some of those drawings again because they actually really sold well when I made them. I wanted people to buy my things where I actually spent a lot of time on the design, but people like doodles, I guess. What do you think? Should I do some of that maybe for a video? Oh, I would also be very interested in hearing about what you think of my lack of music in my videos. As I mentioned in one of my other videos, I don't really put any background music in because I don't necessarily want to push some free music on you if you'd rather listen to something else in the background. I do, however, realize that if you watch the videos on your phone, then the YouTube app is not really great for that. So if you have an opinion on whether or not there should be background music, feel free to let me know in the comments. I were personally thinking something jazzy maybe if I were to add some. I listen to pretty much any kind of music. I also love podcasts, which I think is a very overlooked type of entertainment, especially if you work a lot in front of your computer like I do. And it's actually an essential part of my creative process as well. I always have a second screen going when I work. Usually I'll have my phone next to my computer when I work, and I'll play music or listen to podcasts or watch YouTube videos, etc. Otherwise, I'd go crazy working for 10-hour plus days. I work a lot. Some might say too much, but I say the perfect amount. Because I'm a workaholic. I sing a lot too, usually when I'm alone. Okay, so to get back to the drawing a little bit, I got a lot of comments about it looking like Made in Abyss. And I have to say that I honestly haven't seen that anime, but I know that it exists. I was very surprised that I got so many comments about it, because I usually try not to look at too many references when I work to not get too influenced from other properties. And as I said, I haven't watched that anime at all. All I knew about it was its name and the fact that it exists and is supposed to be good, so I guess I'll have to watch it now. Another thing that I was glad so many people noticed was the TARDIS that you can see right here. And of course the Atari ET cartridge that you can see in the bottom of the screen right here. They weren't really the hardest Easter eggs to notice. There are a lot of more well-hidden things like a small burger and a hot dog and stuff like that. But these Easter eggs are actually colored the color they were supposed to be, so they were a lot more easy to find. I wanted to include the TARDIS because I like Doctor Who. I have seen like the first half of the new series, so I'm not really a super fan. I know there are people out there that are way more into it than I am. But it's a really cool show, and I felt like the TARDIS were perfect for this drawing. It's so iconic and recognizable, and it can really fit in anywhere because of the whole nature of the spaceship's properties. Well, space and time ship, to be more correct, I guess. Hey, there's the hot dog that I talked about before. It's on the left side. So the ET cartridge that we saw before, that is of course a reference to the supposed story of Atari dumping a lot of their ET games in the desert. If you don't know, the ET game is supposed to be pretty much the worst game ever made. It was made under heavy time constraints, and it turned out very poorly compared to what people were expecting of it. They wanted to get it out for Christmas, and that was a pretty bad idea because that just wasn't enough time to actually make it a good game that people wanted to play. So they're supposed to have buried all the copies of the game that they couldn't sell in the desert to hide their shame, and I think it's a really fun story. As far as I could tell, they actually did bury some games, but the whole story has kind of been over-exaggerated over the years, making it both part true and part urban legend at this point. But I still really wanted to include the ET cartridge because the whole story holds a lot of cultural significance, and it's a fun little Easter egg. I also put in a few other references to games, like there's some blocks at the top of the hole, which is really just some generic cubes of dirt, of course referencing games like Minecraft or Terraria. And my favorite one is actually one that we've already passed. You can easily just go back and find it for yourself. It's one of the little crows from the game Monument Valley, which is a game that I absolutely adore. It's one of my favorite games because it has such a nice, unique core mechanic, and it really utilizes the unique visual style that it's made in. And the crows are really, really cute. They're my favorite, so I really had to include one. We're at Greg, the character you just saw right there. So you can tell that we're pretty far down at this point. If you noticed at the beginning of the drawing, there were a lot more little rocks and stuff in the walls of the hole. That's because the top layer is dirt, whereas where we are now has bedrock instead. So I'm not really focusing on making a lot of small rocks or small details. I'm focusing on making lines that makes the wall look three-dimensional and like they're made of stone, and to make some room for these coral-like plants that are growing on the side. I wanted to include a lot of those because they're gonna provide some light down here where it's getting dark. And they're a little intricate to draw, so I waited with a lot of them till the end of the outlining process. You're not actually going to see me draw the bottom of the hole in this video because I did that almost as a separate drawing in the very end of the project. And so here I've picked some red color and I use that to just go over the drawing and see where I feel like something is missing or where more detail should be added. So like this bunny, for example, I chose to put in right there. And this carnivore skull, which is a little more dramatic than the bunny. Because this drawing is so long and you're supposed to go through it in a specific way, it was hard to tell if the flow was right until I actually went over it in the end. And down here, because I am a big fan of Carl Barks, I'm including a being called Terry from his comic Land Beneath the Ground. And I'm also including an atomic bomb down here because I feel like there should be something very dark and sinister and human-made towards the very end of the whole. So after adding a few more details, I'm done with the outline process. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next and final video where I'll be coloring the whole thing. Have a good one. Bye!